sounds, because it does sound a little odd and adds to the unhuman part of it. Inhuman. Not unhuman, inhuman. Hey yo, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer-parent things. This week I want to talk about how to write some dialogue. Now, also please keep in mind that if you would like to stay up to date on all things Sam, such as beta recruitments, website updates, other things, you can sign up to my newsletter down below at SamanthaLNasset.com. If you like these videos, or if you like the Monday Lives, or maybe both, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring-a-ding that bell, and maybe comment down below to help me in the algorithm. Haha. As always, these videos are based on my personal research knowledge and experiences. If you can use the advice, great. If you can't, that's fine. Leave it for someone else. I know it should be self-explanatory. However, I feel it's very important to make sure that we are always on the same page when we start to describe something like this. Therefore, I'm going to go over what dialogue is. Dialogue is the speaking portion of the text. It's usually a conversation between two or more people. However, people can monologue, and that is still considered dialogue because it's being spoken. Now, dialogue will have quotations at the beginning and the end of it. And please keep in mind that when there is a new speaker, that speaker's dialogue should start on the next line. Like 99% of the time. I can't think of a time that it shouldn't, but just in case there is one, I'm going with 99%. I cannot tell you how many dialogues I have critiqued where I just got very confused because there's two speakers in the same paragraph and I had to reread it like 4 or 5 times to figure out who is talking, and just please make sure your dialogue is formatted and labeled clearly. While formatting is important, that's not what we're talking about in this video. So, what are my tips for writing dialogue well? It cannot, nor will it ever be overstated on this channel, how much just watching people can help you write believable characters. Dialogue is absolutely no exception to this. Observing and watching and listening to the people around you can help you get a really good grasp on how syntax and diction varies from person to person and how it stays the same. For example, absolutely none of my friends find it weird at all when I use anachronistic terms such as thee, thou, till, whilst, or anything like that, because that's just how I talk. I just pick up little things like that and I use it. Nobody also thinks anything of it when I say the word fuck. To the point that, like, my baby sister doesn't want anybody to cuss around her daughter, and while she will notice every time our mother cusses, she almost never notices anytime I slip up. I should try harder, but that's funny to me. If I stated such things as tank top suck dildo weed, romance is a shitty, horrible genre that should just be outlawed outright, my friends would probably do a few things. Either they would side-eye and laugh because of the absolute ridiculousness of me ever stating these things, or they would call the cops for fear that I had been kidnapped. They've told me the last one a lot. This is because I do not use the term dildo weed, like, ever. Also, romance is my favorite genre. But aside from that, I also don't say anything should be outlawed. I say it should be burned to the ground because I think that's more effective. Friends will also pick up each other's habits. For example, I use the term yes'ums. I use the term yes'ums because I grew up in the South where you're supposed to say yes sir or yes ma'am, but there's things with that now, so I just say yes'ums because it's a pretty gender neutral way for me to still be Southern polite in my own way. A lot of my friends have picked up yes'ums, which I've done for years, and I don't even think they know why I do it, so it's always entertaining to me when I see a new friend start saying yes'ums. And I'm sure that I have picked up several habits from them that I don't even notice, because that's how friendship evolves. All in all, study people, listen to them. Also take keen note of things that native speakers will say versus things that non-native speakers say. For example, if somebody's native language doesn't use a lot of articles or contractions, so then in English they overcompensate with those articles or contractions or just don't use any of them, that could really help when creating characters who don't speak the primary language of your novel. Now this can also take us to... Oh no, I'm using it in another aspect of writing. That's right, mother cluckers. Believable, not realistic strikes again. Some people will use a lot of pauses or a lot of ums, maybe ramble a lot in their speech. Other people will go on very long tangents, sometimes circling back to the same story while telling 5 side stories. If you have ever been to any of my live streams, you will probably know that this is painfully true about me, which is why I script all of my videos. Here's the thing though, if characters do that, it's going to drag down your dialogue and potentially even bore your readers. I'm not saying that we should never use these things, just that they should be used sparingly and with purpose. In the end, people really don't always need realism to enjoy a story, and sometimes the lack of realism can make it more enjoyable. All they need to do is believe that the conversation would have happened and we have done our job. Preferably also that it is entertaining, but, you know, baby steps. This might be a little weird, or it could be perfectly normal. I don't actually fucking know, so just bear with me until we get to the point. I like to know how a conversation is going to flow and exactly how things are going to be said before I add in actions and everything. To the point that sometimes I will act out or talk out a conversation while I'm driving. So when I go to write it, I write the dialogue first, and then I send it to ACP or 5, and I ask them if everything's flowing well and if they can tell the general feeling of the conversation without the assistance of the narrative. For example, I wrote this one cute conversation between my MC and her love interest, and I sent it to ACP. Now, there was a single line of dialogue that could be taken a few ways. However, my CP told me that because of the context of the conversation and the way the character had been talking before, she felt that it meant A. And I was really excited because it did in fact mean option A. I feel that the narrative should be there to enhance the dialogue of a conversation, but really strong dialogue and character voice can stand on its own. I kind of brushed on this with the previous point. However, after I write out a conversation, sometimes I will read it out loud to myself to make sure that it is flowing well and that it makes sense and sounds good. If I begin to stumble through it or I start confusing myself, then I'll realize that something needs to be tweaked here and there. For example, the phrase, "we cannot go there." Now, I personally struggle to say this phrase in a way that sounds human. Trust me, I've done like 6 or 7 takes. It just ain't gonna happen. This is because exceptionally few people don't use contractions. I am not one of those few people, so it sounds really weird from me. Instead, I would use the phrase, "we can't go there," and as you hear, it flows much better with my natural speech patterns. Now, this is in part why a lot of authors will use contractionless phrases in speech for alien races or robots, because it sounds a little inhuman, so it adds characterization to them. There's a little tip for you. I actually have a whole video on this, which I will link down below and put a card up here. So to summarize, each character should have their own distinguishable voice. And no, I do not mean this is the comic relief or this is the sarcastic one, because guess what? People and characters should be more nuanced than that. Now, one character might have some really dry humor. Another character could be very witty sounding. This character might be sarcastic left and right because they're a condescending asshole. This other character might only use sarcasm when they're really annoyed and therefore lashing out. But building up a consistent character voice for each character can actually clue readers into who is talking before they even see the dialogue tags or the narrative. I have a CP whose character voices I know so well and they're so strong and distinct that she doesn't even bother labeling them anymore, and it's kind of a fun game for me to figure out who is talking, which I very rarely fuck up. I only really fuck up if it's a new character or if it's extremely reasonable for one of two people to have been speaking. And there are these two in particular that are currently my Achilles heel. I will master you. Bottom line, practice character voice and don't rely on one characteristic to tell your readers who is speaking. Comic relief gets real old real fast when that is literally all they do. I want to go ahead and expand on the contraction point from earlier, because one reason that dialogue might drag on or seem very stilted is if it is just too grammatically correct. In a lot of regions and languages, communication evolves to be more efficient. We don't tend to say out every single word if we can combine them or create verbal shortcuts. Should not, could not, would not is usually shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't. And sometimes regions will even take out words from sentences to create something like UK to be a shorter way to say, are you okay? Or just take out letters like all right to ite. So when developing your characters' voices and learning to make dialogue believable, I do recommend learning a little bit about how language works. Which brings us very nicely to slang. Characters are almost guaranteed to at least use a little bit of slang, which can be a very fun way to show the difference in backgrounds and characters. After all, someone could be fixing to make supper, or they could be about to cook dinner. It's little changes in the word choice that can make a really big impact in the character voice. And hell, we can even make up slang. And let's not forget colloquials, which are regional terms that make sense to just about everybody inside the region, whether they know it or not, but can be very confusing to anybody outside the region, such as bless your heart, tan your hide, and sweating like a sinner in church. Yes, these are all Southern. Southern is my default, and this will bring us very nicely to my final point of the video. I highly, I could not more highly recommend that you not write accents into your dialogue. Accents, when written out phonetically, can actually be very difficult to read and very hard to decipher. And we do not want readers to get confused or have trouble following along with the dialogue because they can't decipher the accent. Not to mention, a lot of times, it can really just look like an accent is being mocked instead of portrayed properly. Slang and colloquials are instead going to go a very long way in establishing that character's voice, and you can just say they have an accent. For example, if you write the line, bless your sweet heart, she said in a thick Southern Belle accent, phrase it better please, then readers are gonna hear, bless your sweetheart, because they know what a Southern Belle sounds like. Another example, these are very hard for me to not do in accent the first time I say them, but if you write out the words, you speak well friend, too bad we don't have present for you, they said in a thick Northern accent, the speech pattern plus the they had X accent is going to help people create that accent in their head of, you speak well friend, too bad we don't have present for you. Not to mention, this can just make it harder for somebody with a learning disorder or a reading impairment, such as my dyslexic ass, to actually read the book and enjoy the conversation because it might cause a headache. So for the sake of reader clarity, please just tell us that they have an accent. Alright everybody, that's all I got for this video. Do you enjoy writing dialogue? Do you struggle with dialogue? Please let me know in the comments down below. Were any of these tips helpful to you? Do you plan to use any of them? Also, let me know down below. To stay up to date on all things Sam, you can sign up to my newsletter linked down below at my website, samanthaalnasset.com. I post videos on Wednesdays. I host live streams on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can, check out my website to see examples of my reading because I like to put my money where my mouth is. You can also stalk me on social media because that's cool at Samantha L. Nasset on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. If you liked this video, please give it a like, comment down below, maybe subscribe to the channel, ring-a-ding that bell. Alright everyone, that's really all I got for you this week, so Sam out!